South Africa is talking about one thing right now: immigration. And after President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered his latest address on the issue, social media exploded with reactions. Some people praised the speech. Others said they have heard it all before. And a few asked the question that many South Africans seem to be asking: will this speech lead to action, or will it simply become another promise added to a very long list? Today we're looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the arguments people raised online after the president's address. Not to attack anyone, not to pick sides, but to understand the debate and what it means for South Africa. But before we break it down, let's listen to what the people had to say. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. Now let's get back to the video.
Cyril Ramaphosa just addressed the nation saying he's going to deal with illegal immigration. It's quite sad that it took us, the people, to get the government to act. Those who are supposed to be parents, we got them to act. It is like a child telling their father that they need to be fathers. It is like a child reminding the father of their responsibilities instead of the father leading by example. So it's quite sad that we live in such a country where our government has just made it a banana republic. We have heard promises of job creation. We have heard promises of economic growth. We have heard promises of better facilities that includes hospitals. But instead, we had criminals stealing around about 2 billion at some of the hospitals in South Africa. But then you also ask yourself, is this just a speech to silence South Africans, or is it a speech where someone says, I've heard enough and I've seen the frustration? Because this is not the first time this happens, because this has happened in 2008 where there was an unrest, but the government never followed that up. So what is going to happen this time around? So after this speech, I'm expecting to see what the government is going to do, particularly for small businesses like spaza shops, because it is said that when foreigners come to this country, they can't open small businesses if they have not invested 5 million rand. So I want to see how they are going to assist South Africans in opening those spaza shops, because every single person that comes to this country after being funded by their own government. When you see Chinese people coming and opening your China malls and all the stuff, that funding has been provided by the government of China. So I want to see, after they deal with these illegal immigrants, how Cyril is intending on supporting local businessmen. Because it's one thing to say, what are we going to do when my friend are gone? But that is the job of the government, to empower the locals. So if you're thinking, what are we going to do when my friend are gone, and you're thinking that this has to be just someone's hustle who just wakes up and goes to look for a loan. No. The government has to empower those who are in small businesses. He has to assist them, give them funding to operate at the highest level ever. So I want to see that as soon as he says he's going to deal with this, how many my friends we're going to be left with, and how many of these spaza shops are going to be owned by the locals. Because like I said, we've heard these speeches a lot of times and we are tired.
So the media have chosen Jacinta as being the person who's going to be responsible for whatever happens on the 30th of June. Now you see, I just watched President Cyril Ramaphosa's address of the nation, and honestly, there was not anything that was surprising. These are things that me and you both know. You shouldn't be in the country without papers, right? And you shouldn't be going around intimidating people and asking for people's IDs. These are basic fundamentals of being a law-abiding citizen. But what really caught my eye was the first person these news channels went to seek their reaction. The first person that they went to was Jacinta. They asked her how she's feeling about the president's address of the nation. At first, she actually seemed like she was happy with the president actually prioritizing the issue of immigration. Obviously, then she goes on to say that she wishes that the president went on in depth. But the most fascinating question I saw was with Xolo Mgumbi, where he specifically asked her who started the 30th of June deadline. She tried to distance herself from the date, saying that no, it's the other guy that issued out this deadline. But you can see the media houses are not having it. They're like, that's your date, you must own it. So the major question is not on what's going to happen on the 30th of June. The major question that a lot of people right now are trying to answer is, who is going to be held responsible for whatever happens on that date? I'm saying it's Jacinta. Who do you think it is?
So, Umkhulu Ramaphosa was addressing us today, and I've seen a lot of reactions. People are not buying it anymore. People are just buying scale. I mean, it was just another speech of promises. The guy, it's by the way, it's June. We almost in the middle of June, so that's month 6 of 12 of this year. He told us about 10,000 additional labor inspectors in the beginning of the year, and we are still talking about this 10,000. At least maybe if the number was down a bit, at least down to 5,000. Nope, still at 10,000. Nah, but the major one was setting up dedicated immigration courts. Okay, that's a new one. That is a new one. And then I spoke about this not so long ago, but this thing of increasing the penalties for these employers that employ illegal immigrants, right? I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough of a deterrence to just find these people. Even if you do find them something that will cost them their whole business, right? And then of course arrest them, of course. Like, it has to be automatic. You are found employing someone illegal, arrest. It's 2026 and they are still talking about deploying ground sensors. 2026, talking about drones and satellite monitoring. You should be doing that already. Even this one here, register small and informal businesses. After how long, buddy? After how long? I mean, there's a section in Johannesburg where all you see is just foreigners owning shops that are probably not tax compliant. And the thing is, they run a whole chunk, if not majority, of the businesses in Johannesburg, well, in certain areas, I guess. And then they're still talking about this puzzle shop fund. Now that I'm thinking about it, this puzzle shop fund is just a distraction. Trust and believe, it is just a distraction. You cannot tell me that the whole government, a whole governing body, all those minds came together and this is what they came up with to solve the township, economy. This puzzle shop fund, I mean, how many other things do black people own in the tuck shop, in the townships, right, besides puzzle shops? Anyways, we move. Partnering with African countries, partnering with this one. Those African countries are basically very, very much adamant about prioritizing their citizens over everyone else. But somehow you mentioned nothing about that today. Nothing. Instead, you're telling us about upholding the Constitution. Yeah. He also mentioned something about discontinuing the green ID books. Honestly, it's good, people. I am all in for that. There should be literally zero avenue for these illegal immigrants to slip in. Like, there should be zero chance, zero possibilities of them getting fake IDs, fake whatever. There should be zero possibilities. And for that to happen, you need to scrap some of these avenues of identification, whereby now it's easy for these foreigners to just pay and get these ID books and get some of these ID cards. There needs to be a system whereby now it cannot be infiltrated. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say the name because as soon as you mention the name, yeah. Anyways, do comment what you think about what the guy was saying today.
So President Cyril Ramaphosa has just given a detailed address on how they plan on addressing the immigration crisis in the country. I mean, he's speaking about having designated courts to deal with illegal immigrants. So let's talk about it. If you follow me, you know that I give regular updates on current affairs and matters in the courts. If you're new here, welcome, and please follow. Firstly, if you guys ever doubted that I'm dedicated to this and I care for you guys, I don't know what will convince you, because I'm sitting here in the dark with absolutely no power because ESCOM, and I've listened to President Cyril Ramaphosa give his address, and I'm here to summarize it for you. So this is the 5-point plan that's been presented by President Cyril Ramaphosa to address the illegal immigration crisis. I mean, he's gone in hard on the people that employ illegal immigrants and choose to exploit them because of their desperation, saying it's not enough that they just get to be fined for this, but they must face prison time. He's also admitted that the current immigration laws in the country have a lot of loopholes, and he says those are being exploited by illegal immigrants, and he says the laws must be tightened. But what's really stood out for me is the fact that South Africa is going to have dedicated courts to deal with the illegal immigration crisis. I mean, the Labour Department is going to be hiring 10,000 inspectors who are going to be going to these companies, the culprits that keep hiring desperate illegal immigrants, and they then will be subjected and face the full might of the law. The president has also cautioned South Africans against taking the law into their own hands, saying that they should not allow themselves to be used by organizations that are exploiting the situation. He's highlighted how anti-immigrant sentiments often deteriorate to ethnic and tribal slurs that end up targeting and causing attacks on South Africans. And in what seems to be a response to the plans of the 30th of June this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa has reminded South Africans that no one can randomly walk up to someone that they think is a foreign national and demand that they show them their documents or their papers. That work is only for law enforcement.
Khane, Mr. President, what are you actually saying to us, South Africans? What I was worrying. Tate Ramaphosa. At this stage, we are not expecting you to still give us promises. We expected you to make some commands with immediate effects. Pela, whatever you said, I mean, illegal, immigration or illegal foreigners are still feeling like they still have a chance of staying here. Eh? Even whatever that you said about the labor laws, those bosses that are using those guys, they're still having a chance. I mean, they still feel like they still have a chance to still play around with this. As much as you always promise, but you never deliver anything. You always promised, we will. We expected you at this stage to command, to say with immediate effect, everybody that doesn't have right papers to be in South Africa or operate any business in South Africa must leave our country with immediate effect. So when I was going to be worse, I was listening to Wenyaganu, go lekwane, le grouping na bakhalaju, ba NC lekwane or no, le nyo go timila, bohale bo shetse bo le mo di madipelo tsa rena. As much as we see our videos, we encourage each other to never be violent to these guys. But we wanted your weight as a power to them, to tell them, guys, if you know you don't have any right papers to, so believe.
South Africa's 32% unemployment rate is not caused by a foreign national. It is caused by the system of low and slow economic growth in South Africa. Whose responsibility is that? It's yours and your government's, Mr. President. And here is where I agree with the president, and this is where I disagree with the president. He says that illegal immigration is a real issue, and stress that everyone in South Africa should be in the country documented and that immigration laws must be enforced. I can agree with him on the principle on that. Migration is not the primary cause of unemployment. That is true, Mr. President. South Africa's 32% unemployment rate is not caused by a foreign national. It is caused by the system of low and slow economic growth in South Africa. Whose responsibility is that? It's yours and your government's, Mr. President. And also, he says, corruption is a major problem. He admitted corruption within Home Affairs and the immigration system has undermined the public confidence. And on those 3 points, I will agree with the President. Where I disagree with the President when we talk about the scale of undocumented migration to this country. He described illegal immigration as a significant challenge affecting services, security, and economic progress. Whereas the 2022 stats data says there are roughly around 4.1% of South Africa's population is in fact migrants. There is no flood of migrants overwhelming South Africa and our services.
One of the biggest themes that appeared in these reactions was frustration. Many people argued that government action only seems to happen after public pressure becomes impossible to ignore. The comparison was quite striking. Some described the situation as a child having to remind a parent to be a parent. Now, whether you agree with that comparison or not, it highlights a real issue in democratic societies. Citizens expect leaders to identify problems and solve them proactively. When people feel they must constantly demand action before action happens, trust in institutions can begin to weaken. But there is another side to this argument. Governments often move slowly because major policy changes require laws, budgets, consultations, and coordination between departments. While citizens understandably want immediate action, government processes are rarely as fast as public expectations. Another major point raised was skepticism. Several commentators said they were tired of hearing promises. They pointed to previous commitments regarding jobs, economic growth, border security, and service delivery. This criticism has an advantage because accountability matters. Democracies function best when citizens remember promises and measure results. If voters forget what leaders promised, then leaders face less pressure to deliver. However, there is also a potential downside. If citizens become so skeptical that they dismiss every new policy announcement before it is implemented, constructive debate can become difficult. Sometimes policies do succeed, and it is important to evaluate outcomes rather than assume failure from the start. One particularly interesting discussion involved small businesses, especially spaza shops. Some social media users argued that government should not only focus on immigration enforcement but also actively support local entrepreneurs. This is an important point. Economic empowerment and immigration enforcement are not necessarily the same thing. Removing illegal activity does not automatically create successful businesses. Entrepreneurs often need funding, training, infrastructure, security, and access to markets. The advantage of this argument is that it focuses on long-term economic development. Instead of only discussing who should not be operating businesses illegally, it asks how South Africans can be helped to compete and thrive. The disadvantage is that economic development is complex. Even generous government support does not guarantee business success. Factors such as crime, electricity shortages, consumer spending, and economic growth all play major roles. Another topic that generated a lot of attention was the proposed immigration courts and increased enforcement measures. Supporters argued that dedicated courts could process cases more efficiently and help enforce existing laws. The advantage here is obvious. If laws exist, they need to be enforced fairly and consistently. Specialized courts could potentially reduce backlogs and improve efficiency. But critics questioned whether creating new structures would solve deeper problems. Some argued that South Africa already has laws and institutions, and the real challenge is implementation rather than creating new announcements. Then there was the discussion around employers who hire undocumented workers. Several commentators supported stronger penalties. The argument in favor is straightforward. If businesses knowingly break the law, there should be consequences. Strong enforcement may reduce incentives to hire workers illegally. However, some economists would point out that enforcement alone may not solve the problem. Businesses often make decisions based on economic pressures, labor shortages, and cost considerations. Addressing those underlying factors may be just as important as punishment. One of the most controversial discussions involved the planned activities surrounding the 30th of June and the role of activists and public figures. The president emphasized that ordinary citizens cannot simply demand documents from people they suspect may be foreign nationals. That responsibility belongs to law enforcement. This position has an important advantage. It protects the rule of law. Without clear legal procedures, innocent people could be targeted based on language, appearance, or assumptions. At the same time, some citizens argue that frustration grows when they believe authorities are not acting quickly enough. This creates tension between maintaining legal processes and responding to public concerns. Perhaps the most important disagreement involved the scale of immigration itself. Some people described illegal immigration as a major contributor to South Africa's challenges. Others argued that unemployment, corruption, and slow economic growth are much bigger factors. This is where the debate becomes especially interesting. It is possible for multiple things to be true at the same time. Illegal immigration can be a genuine issue that requires enforcement. At the same time, unemployment, corruption, poor economic growth, and governance challenges may also be major contributors to South Africa's difficulties. The danger comes when people search for a single explanation for a complex problem. Real-world issues rarely have one cause or one solution. What stood out most from these reactions wasn't necessarily agreement or disagreement. It was the fact that South Africans are deeply engaged in the conversation. People are asking difficult questions about accountability, economic opportunity, law enforcement, immigration policy, and government performance. And whether you support the president's approach or remain skeptical, one thing is clear: many South Africans are no longer judging speeches alone. They are waiting to see results. Because in the end, speeches can shape public opinion for a day. Headlines can dominate social media for a week. But what people will remember months from now is not what was promised. It will be what was actually done. And that is the real challenge facing the government today. Not convincing people that change is coming, but proving it.